My name is Anna, and I'm in recovery from addiction, emotional distress, and trauma. There are some things about my story that you need to know in order to understand how this poem represents my entire journey. The struggle and the hope. When I was a little girl, I didn't say to myself, I think I want to be an addict and a felon when I grow up. My earliest childhood memories were of childhood sexual abuse and trauma. Obsessions and compulsions existed long before I discovered heroin at the age of 14. I attempted suicide and was raped by a family member at the age of 15. I spent over 20 years of my life in and out of jails, prisons, treatments, and the streets. I couldn't raise some of my children and even gave birth to one of them while I was incarcerated. So while all the other mothers were wheeled out with their newborns in tow, I was wheeled out in shackles and transported back to jail. And she's actually here tonight. I was re-traumatized, dehumanized, and abused over and over by systems and people because of my stigmas, my labels, and the stigmas around those labels. For me, addiction was not a choice. It is a real brain disease that can override anything and everything that makes sense to people who have never experienced it. For so long, I sought anything outside of myself to numb the pain and make the memories go away. All I knew was pain. 2.5 years ago, I found myself in the depths of my addiction and emotional distress, homeless, sleeping outside, eating out of garbage cans, miserable, pregnant, and scared to death. But recovery is possible. Today I have a life worth living, and support was so vital to my process. This is my brave, and it's called They Waited. When they found her, all she had was a shallow breath and a faint pulse. She was barely alive. Her clothes were torn, soaked in her blood, cheeks stained with tears. Her hair was wet and matted. Every inch of visible flesh was covered in gaping wounds. They lifted her broken body as delicately as they could. They brought her to safety, and they waited. Seconds turned into minutes, minutes into hours, hours into days, days into weeks. All the while, she drifted in and out of consciousness. The pain was overwhelming and agonizing. She slipped back into her coma as her wounds tried to heal. They tended to each one, slowly but surely, and they waited. Eventually, she awoke for more than just a few minutes. She'd finally stopped screaming out in terror. She'd finally realized that she wasn't there anymore. She was safe. She ran her fingers over her flesh and felt the thick, prickly threads. There were so many stitches, and she'd be covered in scars. For every time she'd look in the mirror, they'd be staring back at her. She'd never forget that place, but she'd never have to go back there again because they waited. They never gave up on her. They loved her through it all. Though she was a stranger, they washed away her pain, they stitched up her soul, they calmed her storm, and like a phoenix, she rose from her ashes, reborn, and they waited, so they could witness the powerful force she was destined to become. Thank you.